The jump shot is one of the most common techniques used today and is a fundamental skill. With the jump shot, you don't have to be stationary and open, like with a set shot. You can score on the move and in traffic by jumping and extending your shot over the defender. The one-dimensional skill classification classifies skills according to the size of the primary musculature, the specificity of the movement's beginning and end, and the stability of the environment. Now, it classifies this based upon a spectrum rather than one thing or the other. According to this one-dimensional skill classification, a jump shot is more of a gross motor skill. As it has a definite beginning and end, it is more discrete, and as the jump shot is initiated by the player, it is considered more of a closed skill. Although the one-dimensional skill classification covers environmental context and movement, Gentile's two-dimensional taxonomy also takes into account intertrial variability and object manipulation. Under this classification system, a jump shot is classified as 2B. These are the key aspects of the skill. The stance is important as it provides a base of support and a means of driving or deriving power to drive the shot. Next is the grip. The shooting hand is under the ball and acts as a platform. The other hand is placed on the side of the ball and is used to balance as well as guide it toward the basket. Next, full elbow extension should be achieved while keeping it tucked under the ball. Finally, follow through and release the ball with a snap of the wrist, letting it roll off your fingertips. In order to measure progress, a test will be implemented. There are two portions to the test, a quantitative and a qualitative portion. The quantitative portion will involve 5 shots taken from 5 predetermined positions around the key. A mark or score will be derived from the number of successful baskets versus the number of attempts. The qualitative portion of the test will involve a mark out of 5 for each key aspect discussed in the previous slide. A pretest is administered in order to determine baseline performance. This information will be utilized to establish whether any learning has occurred during the training program. Progress tests will be conducted at the conclusion of every second session. The purpose of a retention test is to determine whether a permanent change has occurred in their skill performance. In order to do so, the retention test must take place after no training has occurred for a period of time. A transfer test shows whether the learner is able to transfer their training to a novel situation. A novel situation is a new situation which they have not been exposed to. According to Paul M. Fitz, there are 3 stages of learning. During the cognitive stage, the learner will attempt to understand the nature of the skill using information from a variety of sources. During the associative stage, the learner begins to understand how the various components of a skill are related. During the autonomous stage, moves become more instinctive and automatic. Therefore, attention can be directed toward other aspects of the performance. Transfer of learning is the dependency of learning or performance on prior experience. Higher level skills can be utilized to build upon lower skills. Another way of looking at this would be how difficult skills can be broken down and simplified. A negative transfer is where a previously learnt skill may hinder the progress of the new skill. They are usually different actions that the learner may associate with the current skill being taught. For example, an overarm throw versus the jump shot.
Demonstrations allow a learner with no knowledge of a movement to observe an instructor and model their initial movements on what they observe. The instructor can also observe the learner's execution of the movement and will demonstrate as necessary in order for the learner to refine their movement. Short verbal cues that emphasize key skill aspects are easier for the learner to remember as they practice their movement. Feedback can be expressed as the result of an outcome or in terms of the quality of the movement. The appropriate type of feedback to give will depend on what the learner is able to see for themselves and should complement what they already know. Because the jump shot is relatively short, feedback will be given at the end of each trial. To ensure they do not become dependent on continual guidance to perform the movement, feedback frequency is reduced to allow the learner to develop their own feedback. The training program takes place over 12 sessions over the period of 6 weeks. By distributing the training across many shorter sessions, we reduce the amount of fatigue experienced by the learner and reduce the number of things the learner has to think about during each session. The shorter sessions are also more conducive to consolidating what was learnt to memory. Although blocked practice can be used to develop initial movement, the repetitive low-context nature of this practice pattern hinders the learner's ability to apply the movement in other contexts. By sequentially and randomly varying drill elements like distance and shooting angle, we create high contextual interference. Although it generates more errors during practice, it leads to higher retention and greater skill progression. By adding dribbling or a defender or both, we can turn our 2B jump shot into 2D, 4B or 4D. The nature of the skill influences how the skill is practiced. A skill can be complex and involve several components. A skill can also be organized and have an interdependent relationship between components. Skills that have few components but whose components are highly interdependent are usually practiced in their entirety. Skills that have many components but have little interdependency can be broken down. The jump shot is highly organized and complex and will require both part and whole practice. Given that there is a limited amount of mental resources, it is important to adjust the training to suit the learner's skill level. If they are proficient in automating a particular task, getting them to perform a second task should result in no performance deficit in the first task. But if they are not proficient, performance in both tasks will suffer due to the drain of mental resources. Short-term memory is involved in focusing attention. However, the attended information needs to be transferred to long-term memory in order for learning to take place. By attaching meaning to the movement, such as short verbal cues or the demonstrations, a mental image can be created which assists in transferring information to long-term memory. The feedback given by the instructor should facilitate the learner in achieving their goal. Learners who are self-motivated, able to assess their own performance and respond accordingly, are likely to make more progress than those who do not have the desire to perform the skill. The instructor can maintain arousal and motivation by ensuring that the training is not so easy that the learner gets bored and not so hard that they get stressed and give up.
Up, extend, and the very last part is that flick. Just think about extending your elbow upwards and flicking your wrist. You're thinking, when you think of the wrist, that's when you...
Yes. There you go.
So this is all in video, yeah?
Yep.
Oops, that wasn't smooth.
So you've got the smoothness, you just got to get the...
So, jump.
The technique's still good though.
And swing low.
Don't spin the ball, spin low.
Swing low.
Yeah. So you're going like this.
Oh, that is true.
It's not good for technique. I'm still using mostly arms. You're receiving one hand. Okay. Yep. Receiving a bounce pass is still 7. That's on video.